In the final video of this module, we're going to set up error handling for the Vuex ORM Axios plugin. Now, once we add authentication to our front-end app in the next module, most of the important errors will be dealt with by the Auth plugin that we're going to use. And the reason for that is that most API errors we encounter will be auth errors, for example, invalid password or token. However, there are some other kinds of errors that we want to deal with at the store level. For example, look at the URL of this item that we're currently viewing. Now this page is able to successfully load our item because the router extracts this ID from the URL and passes that to the API as part of a GET request. But what if this ID was invalid? Like, let's just say that I change some of the characters to something random. Now if we try and load this page again, you'll see that it still loads, and the reason is that the router doesn't know that it's an invalid ID, so it's going to load the page, but obviously there's no data to display. And if we take a look in the console, you can see why. It's because we're getting a 404 error back from the API, which is exactly what we'd expect. Now this kind of error, it could happen in real life if someone tries to visit an item page from an item that's been deleted. So let's go ahead and handle this error. You'll recall that we set up a config file for our Axios plugin earlier in this module. Let's now add an onError method property to the config, and it's going to have error as the argument. Now the error object that gets passed to this method will be from Axios, and it will be sent if Axios gets a non-200 response from the API. Now let's actually deconstruct this error object here and just get the response sub-object, since that's what we're going to be using here. Let's then create a conditional to check if the response property or the response object is defined. Now if it isn't, it just means that the error sent from Axios is not an HTTP error, in which case we're not going to deal with it right now. Now the status property on the response object will tell us what the HTTP status is. So let's check that by going if response status is equal to 404. Now we can deal with the case where we get a 404 error back from the API like we did in the example from before. So to handle this error, we're going to redirect the app to a 404 page. Now this is something that I've already set up here in our router file. So if we scroll right to the bottom here, you can see that we've got a 404 path, and the name of this particular route is route name not found, which is actually a constant. And the component that we're loading here is the not found view. So coming back into our Axios plugin config, let's go to the top of the file now, and we're going to import that route name constant. So we're going to go import route name not found from our constants file. Now we're also going to need to import the router into this file. So let's go import router from router like that. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the function body down here, and we're going to go router push, and we'll pass in an object, and we're going to supply the name, route name, not found like that. So now what's going to happen if the Axios instance gets any 404 errors, it's going to handle them by redirecting the app to the 404 page. There are several other kinds of HTTP errors that we can handle. Now for the sake of brevity, I won't go through these one by one, but you can see how we can use response status in this file as a switch instead of just an if, and this is going to allow us to handle a variety of different errors. So I've actually created a switch case for all the kinds of errors that our API can actually is capable of passing. So as I explained, any of the authentication errors, they should get handled by other mechanisms first, like form errors. So these are really just here as a redundancy, and we wouldn't expect them to be to be used too often. But anyway, you can see that if we get a 401 error, that will push to the login page. If we get a 403 error, which is forbidden, then we're going to go to the forbidden page. And obviously that's our 404 from before. If we get any other kind of error, and that would include a 500 error, if the server's down, let's just say, or any other kind, then we're just going to get redirected to this general error page. So that brings us to the end of this video and to the end of module number 5. So stick around for module number 6, where we'll be implementing authentication into our app.